Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Environmental Podcasts. We are your hosts and founders of Dandelion Branding. My name is Court, and this is Ob.
Hi, everyone.
And this is our podcast where we talk about the transition to a more sustainable future. And today we are joined by Stacy Savage, who is the founder and CEO of Zero Waste Strategies. Thank you so much for being here, Stacy.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. Yes. I mean, we have so much that we want to talk to you about. But to start out, can you tell us a little bit about what you do at Zero Waste Strategies?
Yeah, sure. So Zero Waste Strategies, we're an environmental consulting firm based near Austin, Texas. And we work with businesses, local government agencies, institutions like university campuses. We help them reduce waste to landfills and incinerators in order to drive increased revenue, deeper customer loyalty, employee empowerment, and a green marketing edge over the competition. So we've worked with the likes of Dell, AT&T, Apple, Kohler, Nestle Purina, Boston University, and the City of Austin Recycling Department as well. So we've been at it for 11 years. We just celebrated our 11-year anniversary in January. So very excited to see what 2024 has in store for us.
Yeah, absolutely. So, how do you connect zero waste strategies with all of these softer things like you were saying, the increased revenue, deeper customer loyalty? As a marketing agency, I think we understand it, but how do you make that happen for the folks you work with?
So the entire concept of zero waste is a business efficiency concept, and it demands 90% or more waste reduction from landfills and incinerators. And so when you can build efficiencies into your already established programs, like your hauling programs for trash, recycling, food waste, maybe you don't have food waste implemented just yet, and like through composting. Maybe you have 3,000 employees and no composting in the cafeteria, and your employees are like, why don't we have composting? So, we go in there and we look at your business top to bottom, left to right, side to side, diagonally, and we find all of the money leaks whenever it comes to inefficient waste generation. And where can we implement the zero waste global hierarchy of sustainable materials management? So if you've got, a certain type of product or a certain type of material, let's say it's a load, tons and tons of cardboard that come out your back end of a business, and it's usually going to the landfill trash dumpster. Cardboard is very lucrative on the commodities market. So let's find out what the rate is in your area. Let's see if we can lease a cardboard baler, put it on your property, bale the cardboard, put it in 1-ton cubes, and get someone to come and pick it up and pay you for it. It's a revenue stream. Why are you giving it to landfills to be put in a dump and covered up by dirt? So you're sitting on a gold mine. There's literal cash in your trash, people.
Wow.
And so this is what I talk to businesses about, and people who want to become clients of zero waste strategies is, let us find the cash in your trash, because it's going out the back end. You're paying for it twice. You're paying for it on the front end because it's coming into your business. Then you're using it wherever. And if you're just using it, like, think about single-use plastics. I mean, it's a fork. You eat with it, it gets chucked, and it goes to landfills. So what are the alternatives? Can we reduce waste through, reuse, through repair, through remanufacturing, refabrication, reselling, upcycling, downcycling? Where can we use the hierarchy, which it looks like this, right? And at the very top is reduce, reuse, all those factors, and then recycles at the bottom. And then at the very, very bottom of the tip is landfilling and incineration, because that's a disposal method, not a diversion method. Diversion from where the disposal facilities are. So keeping those valuable materials out of the disposal process, because you can't really recover them once they're burned or buried. And so with that, you layer on top of that the education piece for training of employees, and you get them jazzed up about taking ownership of the whole program: recycling, composting, reuse, repair, you get them championing that to their work peers throughout the building, and they start to understand it. They take authority over it. They take accountability for it, and they want to see it succeed. So they start to become your cheerleaders. You've got eyes and ears out there. You start to build up your green teams. You've got employees that are, on the sidelines going, rah, rah, rah. Yes, you put it in the right spot. Good job. You're really going to start to realize a lowering of cross-contamination, because when banana peels and coffee grounds end up in the recycling, it's contaminated. The recycler they can't do anything with it. So we always have to think, what happens downstream from what I've got in my hand right now? If I don't put it in the right bin, then it's probably going to muck it up somewhere down the line, and somebody else is going to have to deal with my mistake. So when in doubt, throw it out, put it in the trash. You just don't want to contaminate the recycling or the food waste composting. So there's a training piece, and we make it so fun. We got quizzes, we got games, we've got, challenges that people are, so that it actually sticks. A lot of us just, especially Gen Xers like me, like my people out there, boomers and Gen Xers really did not have the education training being brought up with waste diversion practices in our lives, right? It wasn't at our homes, it wasn't at our work, it wasn't at recreational facilities like, state parks or even at the rec center down the street. So we didn't have that ability to understand what the implications would be on future generations. So now that recycling and food waste composting, zero waste, circular economy is becoming like the big thing, getting out of the linear economy, right? Where we extract raw materials, we refine it, we transport it overseas or across state lines or across country lines, whatever hemisphere you're in. And then we put it on the store shelves, we buy it, we use it, we dump it when it's broken, obsolete, and we go out and find the next shiny thing. That's very linear. It's highly destructive. And what we want to do is take the two ends of the linear economy and loop them so that we give multiple lives for all of these materials, so that the extraction and refining process is not done in vain, and that we're giving as many lives to these products and these materials as possible. And that builds up jobs. When you think about the green jobs that we can create at the local level. So it's not just about the green. There's two sides of the green coin. It's the environment and the economics of it, right? So, we always pitch the the economics of it, just because money in your pocket is what businesses want to hear about. And, sometimes the environmental message just doesn't resonate with some people. They want to hear about the money. They want to hear about the job creation, and they want to hear about how my recycling stabilizes the economy. So if we could do that on a collective level and give people that ownership over it, they feel very empowered. And they're going to keep doing it correctly to make the program work. And they're going to help train their other peers who are newly onboarded, or who have finally come on board after kicking and screaming for 6 months. So there's a lot to be said for the training piece that's layered on top of the waste reduction piece, and plugging all the money leaks as well. And then you got to look at the green marketing opportunities, because how are you going to build out your street cred, your green cred as a business within your industry with the leadership that you want to display, and not be called for greenwashing? You got to have the numbers, you got to have the transparency, you've got to track the data. And so that's what we do. This is how you scoop up those top tier talent, millennial and Gen Z workers who want to work with a purpose. They want to be with a company that has a cause. And so if your business is, a laggard in your industry and you ain't doing much about sustainability, you're probably not going to get much enthusiasm from your employees. But I can tell you one thing, with these major corporations and even small mom and pops that we work with, because zero waste is scalable, it's people want to buy into programs that they know are going to support social justice, environmental justice, and can help, resolve issues within their community. They don't want to be part of the problem. But a lot of times the companies that they work for force them into that role, because if there's no programs available, they don't have any options to be responsible with their materials. So it usually comes from the bottom up in a grassroots way, where's our composting? We need composting. When 3,000 employees are saying we need composting, and then your CEO says, I want a zero waste program, get it in tune, get in line. And then you've got the middle management feeling the squeeze from investors and shareholders and your consumers. And you're just like, okay, finally, we'll put it in place. So sometimes it's.
And then you stand up with this incredible service and go, zero waste strategies right here for you. Okay, there is a lot to unpack, all of the and everything you just said. So I'm going to transition us to our favorite part of this show, which is where we ask you about the role you play in the sustainable transition. But before we get into that, I'm going to remind our audience that we have really inspiring guests the first and third Wednesdays of every single month. And if you find this content incredibly inspiring like we do, please hit that like and subscribe button, and we will see you next time. Okay, Stacy, tell us about the role that you guys play, because you have this service where you're increasing revenue, you're inspiring employees, you're training people, you're bringing in jobs, you're creating inspiration in customers and in employees. So, and then you also were just talking about social and environmental justice. So what is the role that you're sitting in here? It's pretty big.
I have a pretty unique perspective because my previous career 11 years ago was a door-to-door campaign organizer for an environmental nonprofit statewide here in Texas.
Okay.
And I've knocked on tens of thousands of doors every year for 9 years straight. So I've talked to thousands of Texans about these key issues, and they are, not just in Texas, they flew me to Colorado and Michigan and New Jersey and Ohio. So I've talked to people all over the country, and they are very concerned with environmental degradation and mainly corporations' part in just in planet pollution, planetary pollution. So the gaining that perspective from people and helping them feel empowered through our campaigning. When we come and knock on the door, we'd say, this is what we're doing. Do you agree? Yes or no? Great. Sign here. Go get your checkbook. And we're writing letters to the mayor or to your, to the governor or to your state senator or whatnot. So we would have, these statewide campaigns, and Texas has 181 legislative districts in the state, 31 Senate, 150 House. So our campaigns went every single legislative district. It was called Project 181. And we would knock on doors in all over Texas. And you know how big Texas is. So there's a lot to say for every walk of life, every political leaning, every religious sect. Doesn't matter where you're coming from. There's still mercury in your water, and your kids are drinking it. So, it's about corporate responsibility, and it's about finding those advocates and allies within those communities who are embedded that we didn't know about before until we knocked on their door. And once we found them, when we activated them, there's no stopping them. We passed back in 2007 we passed two key pieces of statewide legislation. One in 2007, which was the e-waste take-back law. And we worked with Dell on that. And Dell helped us draft and lobby for an e-waste take-back law, where the producers like Apple, like HP and Dell, they would be responsible. Normally, those toxic computers would just end up in our landfills, right? They're taxpayer owned most of the time. So we're footing the bill for their clunky products that, pre-laptop, pre-flat screen, that kind of thing. But there's a lot to be said for using taxpayer dollars for corporate cleanup. And that's exactly what was happening. So we got a bill passed. It was unanimous in the House and the Senate. Texas, because Dell is the largest employer in Central Texas. So you don't want to be on that guy's bad side, right? So we did the same. We repeated the same victory back in 2011 for televisions. And we worked with Panasonic on that TV take-back law, where the TV manufacturers were responsible. So keeping millions of pounds of e-waste out of Texas landfills and then putting the onus back on the manufacturer. They need to look upstream. How are we going to make this product more recyclable, out of recycled materials? How are we going to make it less toxic and pull things like mercury and arsenic out of our production system, And whenever it gets downstream, and once it's obsolete or it's broken, the consumer then has to deal with, what am I going to do with this now? We're going to send them a box and a mailing slip, and they're going to put it in there and mail it back to us, and we'll take it and we'll refurbish it. We'll do whatever we need to do, but it's a closed loop system like we were talking about a little bit earlier. So that, those two key pieces of legislation helped us join about 24 other states across the country that have e-waste legislation and take back bills.
It's almost half the country.
It's more than half population wise.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah.
How does the consumer know? I think this is part of the green marketing edge that they have, right? Like if it breaks, send it back to us and we'll refurbish it. And I think this connects with what you're talking about earlier with aligning with social justice values and environmental values of younger generations as well. I guess because it's one thing to have the law, but it's another thing for people to take advantage of it. So how do people know, or do you consult on that?
Unfortunately, the state environmental agency here in Texas, the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, not necessarily for environmental quality, they kind of passed the buck. So they said, okay, well, we'll put this, we'll make all the rules around it. We'll do the administrative process, but cities and counties, you need to educate your folks. And then there wasn't really any funding to do that. So it took more PR campaigns from nonprofits like the one that I had worked at to get that bill passed. The companies as well, saying, hey, we've got this program. The state environmental agency basically put up a website, and if you knew about it, great. If you don't, oh well. So there wasn't much invested, but to date, I think we're looking at 350 million pounds of e-waste diverted from Texas landfills back to the original producers.
Ain't nothing.
It ain't nothing.
Yeah, wow.
And we have almost 200 landfills in Texas. We take in trash from other states. The more space we can free up and not clog it up with computers and TVs, then we're better for it, and to keep the toxic chemicals from leaching into the groundwater.
Yeah, and there's so many parts of a TV or a laptop that, as you mentioned, can be refurbished or reused and not remined, because Texas also has a ton of mines, right? If we need them less, then it would be better for everything from the air pollution to the groundwater. You told us earlier that you wanted to talk a little bit about true zero waste faculty certification.
Facilities, yeah.
Facilities certification.
So True is a new system. Well, I say new. They were established back in like 2015, 16. But think about LEED for green buildings and tracking energy, water, that kind of thing, retrofits. So LEED is under the U.S. Green Building Council, and they administer this program for certification for your building and to certify it as a green building. True is its counterpart, but for waste, under the U.S. Green Building Council, and the certification process comes through an organization called Green Business Certification, Inc., under the authority of the USGBC. So the USGBC is kind of the overarching, organization with thousands of members nationwide, chapters in every state, basically. And then GBCI is the certifying arm to set all the standards and all. So True requires 90% waste diversion for any facility that wants to go after their certification, and we help them get there. So Zero Waste Strategies comes in, we do a waste audit. We're literally up to our elbows for 6 hours in your trash, in your recycling, in your food waste, down to the gum wrapper. And we're weighing and cataloging and photographing and videoing the entire process so that we can eventually draft a full kind of zero waste master plan for the entire facility. And after that, we'll do a fun training like we had mentioned, and then we'll help them through the True certification process. So we find out all their data. We find out, we look at their contracts. What are their haulers charging them? Can we find ways to minimize, these dumpsters over here? And maybe we don't need 5 pickups a week. Maybe we only need 3, because this part of the facility is shut down for repairs, or we can start to look at where are those, like I said, those money leaks a little earlier. We start to find where the lack of optimization is happening, and then get it in line. Then get their staff trained up and feeling good about what they're doing, and helping them with the signage, and making sure that all the bins are color coded properly and that it's consistent throughout the building, and doing key interviews with people. What is your perception of recycling? Do you want this type of program? Getting their golden nugget insights, because they're going to be very candid with us, not necessarily their own managers. So we can get some pretty good little nuggets of information and insights from them. And we put it all in a big report, and we help them implement and roll out their programs, and eventually get that true certification.
How long does that process typically take? I'm sure there's quite a range, but from like beginning to actual certification.
Depends on the starting point. If you've already got the recycling and the food waste composting systems in place, people are pretty familiar with them. It's how you train them. The onboarding process, this is what we expect of you. Do you agree? Yes, I agree. Okay, great. You've signed the personnel policy that says you will use these programs correctly and not contaminate our recycling and composting. So there are some folks who don't really have anything in place just yet. So it takes a little bit longer. But for those who are, I would say between a year and 2 years, more like 18 months to 2 years. Yeah.
Okay. Can you, I mean, this is just a thought bubble that I had of being like, I don't have recycling or composting. I don't have any sort of like, everything just goes into one bucket. You know what? I think I'll just go get a true zero waste certification. I'll just start that process. Like that feels like people jump in. Do you get that more though than somebody that's like, we've been on this path and now we're ready to, yeah.
No, it's usually incremental, but there are some people out there who want to go whole hog, and they're just like, let's do it. We've got the funding for it. We've got the AOK from our CEO or our C-suite or whoever's overseeing the sustainability management program with their business. So, sometimes, like I said earlier, put a zero waste program in place, and a lot of times it's the middle managers that have no idea where to start. And so that's where we come in. We say, let me take your hand, and I will walk you through the whole process. We'll make it as painless as possible. And, they start to open their eyes and start to understand that waste is a factor of inefficiency. And the more inefficient you are, the more waste you're going to be generating. So you can see that in the attitudes of employees, and they're just kind of like, eh. Or we can really push it at the onboarding level and say, these are our programs, here's how you use them, da, 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 da. And you'll see people just, feeling, they're more beaming with pride that they're working for a company that actually gives a damn. So that's where we're either starting at the starting line, or sometimes we're just coming around the backstretch and we need to hit the goal line. So it's anywhere in between. Anyone can start anywhere they're at. A lot of times it's hard to hit that 90% if you do have a food permit, but you don't have any composting options around. Like there's actually no hauler that will come and pick it up from you in your region. But there are lots of ways that you can reduce food waste, by working with farmers or ranchers, getting that transport logistics squared away, and getting it off your property and detailing it as diversion, because it's going to a higher and beneficial reuse to feed livestock, or to create compost offsite at to nourish crops on a farmer's, their land. So there's ways that you can do it with, even if you don't have a compost program in your backyard. And I say that lightly because I've got one in my backyard, but some people have them at their homes. Some people expect it at their office. Some people are like, I don't care. So you're dealing with a range of knowledge levels on the topics, and you're dealing with a range of sentiments from people. You're dealing with a range of history as well. Maybe they grew up with it, maybe they didn't, and you're also dealing with whether the company that you work for prioritizes it or not. If they don't, then it's probably not going to be part of your corporate culture.
That makes sense. Do you see a transition there? Like, I imagine, because you're celebrating 11 years, things in the world were really different 11 years ago. Do you, I guess, kind of a two-part question, were there more naysayers then than they are now? And do you see a transition to people who would maybe typically fall in your general category of hard knowing and not caring being a little softer now?
Yeah, I think back in 2013, whenever I started the company, yeah, it was a very different landscape, and people were very focused on lead certifications. True wasn't even out yet, right? It was 2015, 16. And so they didn't understand that waste was an output. They understood it as a bottom line budget line item issue. Oh, we have to have our trash hauled off. We can't have trash hanging around and welcoming pests and that kind of thing. It's a health safety issue. We have to dedicate $150,000 every year for this mega corporation at this facility to haul it off and to have it just done with. And, you know, where is away when you throw something away? We live on a circular planet with finite resources. So there is no such place as away. You can never throw something away. And so away tends to be our backyards and fence line communities that have to deal with landfill odors and vectors and pests. It becomes our oceans where all the single use, not all, but a lot of single use plastics just float. And there's away is no such place. And so we have to, people are starting to understand that their impacts, with climate change, the climate crisis, the plastic pollution crisis. There's a lot more that they can be doing within their own household, within their own business, whether you own the business or whether you're a manager. Getting the buy-in from people is not so hard these days. They're starting to see, especially with social media, booming and the real stories of real people are coming out and what they're really having to deal with.
Yeah.
It runs the gamut, but climate change is a big issue on all social media platforms. And so I think people are following very quickly and closely, but they're also questioning their own businesses. Like, what are you doing for us regarding sustainability? Where's our sustainability? I do not want to be part of the problem. We can't be complicit. Let's be better. And so we're definitely finding that it's a grassroots push from the employees, but also the consumers that are finding out, like, ooh, you're not doing what you're saying you're doing. We're going to expose you. We're going to call you out. And then it becomes a PR nightmare. So we really have to, my role is to help businesses, instead of shaming them from the outside, pointing fingers, it's helping them from the inside. We got to help, not harm, from the inside, because I got to think about it every time. Because remember, I used to be an activist and my job was to point and shame from the outside of these corporations. Now I work with them from the inside, and we're helping rather than harming. And we have to give a little bit of grace whenever it comes to transitions and putting new programs into place. But once they're in place, they're a well-oiled machine. And, you start with the onboarding process. You set the corporate culture. The expectation is there, and there's no deviation from that. And then, workers tend to help each other out, and it becomes kind of an all-in-one, like you said earlier, before we started recording, the all hands on deck kind of mentality, because we are in a 5-alarm, 6-alarm situation here whenever it comes to the climate crisis. So everybody needs to do their part, but companies, they are the biggest polluters on the planet, and they have got to stop shifting the blame and the onus on the individual consumer. They have got to step up, and they need to be leaders within their industry. They have got to do what it takes in order to keep their waste out of these burn and bury facilities.
Beautiful. Beautifully said. I think that we could ask you questions for hours. Yeah, and it would be really fun.
They don't call me the Texas trash talker for nothing.
I love that. But here, let's have one more question. Where can people find you? Can they connect with you? What's the best way?
Yeah, so we're at zerowaste.org, and that's the number 0, not the word. We're on all of the major social media platforms, and folks can reach out to the business line, 512-693-7677. Again, we're here in the Austin area. So some of you might recognize that 512 area code. But yeah, and just about to release a new ebook, and it is a zero waste guide for busy families. And so that'll be coming out probably the beginning of March. So be on the lookout for that. And it's about a 50-page guide, and we go room by room in your home of what you can do with things that you've collected over the decades, right? And what to do with kids stuff, and once they've outgrown it, and what do you do with your kitchen scraps if you don't have a composting program curbside. So there's all kinds of goodies in there that we can help people have a more sustainable household and reduce their waste and save money.
Wonderful.
Love that. That's very exciting. I will definitely be downloading that. That's
We will.
fantastic. Well, thank you everyone for watching. We appreciate you spending your time with us, and thank you so much, Stacy, for being here and for the work that you're doing. Absolutely incredible.
You bet.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next time.